The Zareth had known war. Their chronicles were filled with sieges, starships burning in orbit, and armies clashing with disciplined precision. They prided themselves on order, on strategy, on knowing their enemy before a battle was ever fought. To them, war was grim. Yes, but it was predictable, calculated. And then they learned about humanity. When their explorers first encountered human settlers on Vara Delta 4, the Zareth were cautious but curious. The humans built fast. Colonies rose with stubborn determination, domes gleaming beneath the twin suns, roads carved through rock, and machines that turned barren fields fertile. But it wasn't the speed that unsettled the Zareth. It was the stories. They studied human history through trade, through captured archives, through whispers that spread across the settlements. And what they found shook them. Humanity had fought wars that devoured continents. Empires that burned half the world just to crown a king. Nations that starved themselves only to fund armies that marched to certain death. They fought in deserts, in mountains, beneath seas, in skies of fire. They fought when logic said surrender. They fought when survival seemed impossible. And they won. Again and again, against numbers that dwarfed them, against odds that mocked reason, humans clawed their way through history with a defiance the Zareth could not comprehend. They salted their own lands rather than yield them. One counsellor whispered in disbelief. They crossed oceans in wooden shells, not knowing if land lay ahead. They burned cities to the ground to deny them to their foes. The records were madness, recklessness, and yet every page of blood and fire ended the same way. Humanity endured. To the Zareth, it was monstrous. A species that thrived on chaos, that turned desperation into weapons, that refused to die even when death was certain. A species that might, one day, turn that same unbreakable will against them. So Commander Xylar made the decision to strike first. He stood before his assembled captains, his voice cutting like a blade through the chamber. You have heard their history. You know the truth. We are not aggressors. We are the guardians of the future of our people. We strike now, before their serpent's head grows too large. Strike before the monster turns its eyes upon us. His words fell heavy, igniting the war fever in his ranks. Zareth soldiers poured into Vara Delta 4, banners high, their war machines pressing against human lines. And true to the stories of their history, the humans did not break, even though they were few, even though the enemy was many. For a month now, the battlefield had ground itself into stalemate. Human fortifications held the line with brutal efficiency, their guns never silent, their trenches dug deep into alien soil. Zareth battalions threw themselves forward and were repelled. Human squads tested the wire and were driven back, and between them lay no man's land. Once fields of violet grass, now nothing but craters, mines and the stink of smoke. Drones that crossed it were shot from the sky. Soldiers who set foot on it rarely returned. It was a place where hope went to die, a place neither side claimed. Each morning, human rifles and Zareth cannons traded fire. Each night, the ground trembled with bombardments. The Zareth could not press forward even an inch into no man's land, pinned by mines, turrets, and deadly traps. Yet they did not yield. In the trenches, Zareth soldiers whispered the same warning again and again. Do not underestimate them. These are humans. They do not stop. And across the wasteland, the humans proved it true with every passing day. And so the deadlock stretched on. Then came the moment that neither side could have foreseen. The morning was quiet, smoke drifting in pale ribbons over the broken earth. Both armies watched the wasteland with weary eyes, waiting for the next futile push. It was in this silence, this tense standstill, that something happened none of them could have imagined. A child walked into no man's land. The warfront was a machine of rhythm, fire, silence, fire again. Soldiers on both sides learned to endure its pattern, to expect its violence, to live inside its unbroken cycle of waiting. But the machine faltered on the 32nd day. It began with an evacuation convoy on the Zareth side. Civilians, families fleeing the border colonies, moved under escort toward the rear lines. Massive crawlers rumbled across the dirt roads, their armor dented but proud, banners painted on their sides to mark them as non-combatants. Zarithian children peered out from narrow slits in the hulls, clutching at parents' arms. They believed themselves safe. Then the shell fell. It began with a sound everyone feared, the hollow cough of a mortar tube, the shriek of steel through the sky. Then, instead of striking where war had drawn its boundaries, the shell strayed from its path. It came down near the Zareth evacuation convoy, striking the ground with a deafening crack. The ground heaved. Dust and shattered stone leapt into the air, rattling against metal and armor. No lives were taken, but terror swept faster than the shockwave. The convoy broke into chaos. Carts swerved, engines stalled, beasts screamed, and civilians scattered as if more shells would surely follow. Panic devoured order in an instant. Civilians scattered into the open, their cries rising above the battlefield's silence. Soldiers scrambled to contain the chaos, to pull survivors into cover, but confusion turned discipline to ash. Shouts of command drowned beneath the wailing of the wounded, and in that storm of terror a Zarithian child ran. In that chaos a small figure slipped from the crowd unnoticed. Kale, a boy no older than 7 by human measure, stumbled, tripped, and then ran the wrong way. His thin limbs carried him past the stalled convoy, past the grasping hands of neighbours, past the line of armoured soldiers barking orders. None saw him until it was too late. He had already crossed the boundary where even armed men feared to tread. He had entered no man's land, but then he stopped. A barbed wire, almost invisible under the dust, had caught his foot. He stumbled, twisted, and fell slightly, his small leg caught and tangled. Panic flared as he struggled to free himself, tugging at the wire and the edge of his cloak. He had been lucky to make it so far without touching any of the hidden dangers scattered across the wasteland, but now this simple obstacle held him fast, leaving him stranded in the middle of the deadly expanse. He collapsed to his knees, shivering, tears streaking the dirt and grime on his face. His chest heaved as sobs racked his tiny body. Through the shaking, broken sound of his voice, only one word came: "Mommy, mommy, mommy." Over and over, desperate pleading, the sound small and fragile against the vast silent wasteland. Each whisper and cry carried the pure terror of a child who had suddenly found himself completely alone in a world made to kill. His wide, wet eyes darted around, bewildered and helpless, unable to comprehend the deadly expanse, unable to move. All he could do was call for his mother and hope that she would come and save him. His mother, already frantic in the chaos, searching desperately for her lost son, heard his cry. She screamed his name, voice raw, cutting through dust and gunpowder. "Kale! Kale, no, please! Someone help! Please!" Her body lunged forward, but hard arms caught her. Zareth soldiers levelled their rifles, crossing them before her like iron bars. She thrashed against the blockade, nails clawing at armour, her voice breaking into 1,000 desperate pieces. "My son, he is my only child. Let me go, Kale." The soldiers held their ground, faces tight with fear. No one dared step into no man's land, not even for their own kin. Mines, turrets, hidden traps. They knew every step could be their last. In their hearts a reluctant truth settled. The child's fate might already be sealed. Across the barren strip, human soldiers had risen from their trenches. Their eyes tracked Kale as he stumbled deeper into the wasteland, a small, fragile figure cloaked in pale fabric, utterly defenseless against the horrors that lay before him. Even across the void, the mother's desperate cries carried, raw and piercing. The Zareth line trembled under the weight of indecision. Officers barked conflicting orders: hold her back, stand fast, pray, but no one moved forward. Fear held them in place, a vice around their limbs. They watched the boy, and with every step he took, they silently acknowledged the possibility that he might not survive. In the human trenches, silence grew heavier. Rifles lowered fractionally, every gaze fixed on the child. Even history seemed to pause, the memory of impossible human feats weighing in the air. The mother's voice tore again through the stillness, louder, raw, a plea that felt like it demanded the universe itself answer. "Please! He is everything I have left. Someone, anyone, save him." Her words echoed across both sides of the battlefield, naked in their desperation. And then in that unbearable silence, it happened. A single human soldier began to climb the trench wall. Silence fell over the trenches, thick as mud, broken only by the wind whistling across the blasted plains. The world seemed to hold its breath. Then a figure stirred. Private Miller began to climb the trench wall. He carried no orders. No one had commanded him to move. No one stopped him either. Around him, rifles and rifle scopes watched silently. A few soldiers met his eyes and gave the smallest of nods. No words were spoken, none were needed. They were human, and this is what humans did. This act was his alone, but it carried the weight of all of them. He left his rifle and gear behind, the clatter of metal hitting the trench floor sounding impossibly loud in the tensioned silence. Each step forward was a step away from the safety of Earth, into a wasteland designed to kill. Mines lay hidden beneath ash and dirt. Automated turrets tracked every motion with merciless precision. Traps waited for the unwary, as if the land itself thirsted for blood. Across the no-man's land, the Zorith command panicked. Their officers barked in overlapping shrieks, a storm of alien syllables filled with disbelief and fear. "He'll use the child as a hostage." "Do we fire? Kill him now." "No, we cannot." But none moved. Hesitation, something their soldiers were unaccustomed to, rooted them to the spot. Even in the heart of their assault, even with rage and suspicion coursing through them, fear had seized them. The human walked on, step by step. Dust kicked up under Miller's boots, clattering debris rattling like distant gunfire. He slowed near a hidden mine, eyes scanning the ground, calculating the safest path by instinct. One misstep and the explosion would have swallowed him. A turret's lens tracked him, a silent predator, but he moved in the shadow of the metal, crouched, deliberate, unwavering. In his mind, he counted heartbeats before each step, visualizing every possible misstep, every trap. The wind cut across the cratered plain, carrying with it Cale's soft cries. "Mommy, Mommy, Mommy." The child's voice shook the air, each repetition raw with fear. When Miller reached him, Cale was tangled in the barbed wire, small legs pinned, body trembling. Dirt streaked his pale face, tears smearing across his cheeks, his arms flailing weakly as he sobbed for his mother. Miller knelt carefully, murmuring softly, fingers strong but gentle, and untangled Cale from the cruel wire. He held the boy close, feeling the rapid thrum of his heartbeat, the shivers racking his tiny frame. For a moment, time seemed to stop, and then the walk forward began. Cale clung to him, still sobbing, whispering "Mommy, Mommy" into the human's chest. Every step was a gamble. The ground he trod hid death in subtle shapes, mines and tripwires lying like coiled snakes. And then a glint of metal caught his eye. A turret had tracked him. The lens followed every movement, calculating, cold, inevitable. Instinct surged. Miller broke into a run, Cale pressed tightly to his chest, boots pounding the cratered earth, dust and debris flying in his wake. The turret fired. A streak of light hissed past, shredding dirt where he had just been. Miller ducked instinctively, rolling behind a small mound, Cale clinging to him, eyes wide. He pushed off, sprinting again, heart hammering, muscles screaming, calculating every step over mines and tripwires, each second a knife edge between life and death. And then, pain exploded in his shoulder. A bullet slammed into him, searing through muscle, stealing his breath. Cale jerked against him, frightened, but Miller gritted his teeth and kept moving, forcing his legs forward, stumbling, pushing through the agony, refusing to let the child fall. Dust and blood mixed as he surged over the last stretch, reaching safety. Across the wasteland, the Zorith froze. The mother's eyes went wide, her cry choked in her throat, body rigid, staring. Officers staggered backward, faces pale, claws gripping weapons they barely noticed. Shock, fear, disbelief. They all rippled through the lines without a single sound. Miller sank to one knee, still clutching Cale, shoulder bleeding, chest heaving. Cale trembled, but was unharmed. The mother dashed to him, flinging herself over her son, her alien features twisted in raw emotion. Awe, fear, gratitude, disbelief, all unspoken, painted in the wideness of her eyes, the tension of her hands. "Cale, my son, you're safe!" And then, looking up at the human who had carried her child through death itself, she sobbed, a sound full of gratitude, awe, and disbelief. "Thank you, thank you." The Zorith soldiers froze, weapons lowered fractionally, faces twisted with confusion, doubt, and awe. For the first time, they saw it. Not a monster, not a conqueror, but a human capable of mercy beyond calculation, beyond strategy, beyond expectation. Commander Zyla himself pushed through the stunned ranks, his crest rigid with disbelief, his eyes locked on Putter Miller as the human turned to walk back across the wasteland. "You." Zyla's voice rasped, sharp but unsteady. "Why? You could have used the child as shield, as hostage, yet you risked death only to give him back." "Why?" Miller paused, hand pressed firmly against his shoulder where blood seeped through his fingers, yet his gaze never wavered. He looked across the distance, meeting the alien commander's eyes. His voice was steady, carrying over the stunned silence, unwavering despite the pain. Because he's just a child. In his fear, in his fragility, there is no enemy, only life. And we protect life, no matter whose it is. That is who we are. The words struck harder than any shell. Zylar's certainty, the foundation of his war, crumbled like ash. His hand twitched toward his weapon and froze. His soldiers watched their commander falter, and in that moment their will to fight collapsed with him. Realization spread through the lines like wildfire. If this is what humans were, if this is how they acted, even in the face of death, perhaps war itself was not inevitable. The soldiers lowered their weapons. The commanders stilled. The machinery of war faltered, slowed, and then stopped. It was over. Not by bombardments, not by firepower, not by cunning or deception. A month-long war, halted not by weapons, but by mercy in the minds. Cale clung to his mother, safe at last. Miller lingered for a heartbeat, and then turned, leaving the boy in her arms, and walked back toward his own lines. Every step carried the weight of courage, every motion a testament to a species that defied comprehension. Across the trenches, Zareth soldiers lowered their weapons, faces pale and trembling. Officers whispered in disbelief, eyes locked on the humans who had risked death not for conquest, not for strategy, but for mercy. The stories of humanity's monstrous past were true. They were fierce, relentless, terrifying in their audacity. But now, a new truth settled in the hearts of the Zareth. There was another side to this species, a side that could risk everything to save even the smallest enemy. And with a single selfless act, the war that had raged for a month, fueled by fear, suspicion, and history, collapsed. Not by weapons, but by heroism. History would remember this day, not for the guns fired or the ground claimed, but for the moment the Zareth understood the truth. Humans were not just monsters of war. They were a force beyond prediction, a species capable of risking everything to save even an enemy, and whose wrath for their own would shake the very stars.